Hello everyone, welcome back to the cave. My name is Kovadis. Today I'm going to be cutting this tumbled quartz, creamy color quartz. I'm going to try and cut the perfect Portuguese style gemstone on my own homemade faceting machine. Now I did speed up the video quite a bit because it's extremely long, but I cannot remove a lot of it out because it is how to. I'm showing how to do it on my machine. So I have to the only option I have is to speed it up really. Here, I'm trying to see which side the table is going to be. Because there may be some imperfections and some inclusions, and I see some very, very tiny hairline, microscopic cracks. So I'm gonna see if this side, how deep it goes. If it's not this side, I'll check the other side. Now, cutting a Portuguese style gemstone it's okay. It's mid level in terms of difficulty, but cutting it perfectly and cutting a really well symmetrical stone that looks really, really great, that is extremely difficult. And I love Portuguese style gemstones. The brilliance, the reflections that they have is out of this world. So it is one of my favorites. Could be even my favorite. To cut a perfectly balanced, well symmetrical Portuguese style gemstone, everything has to be very straight. That means your machine has to be true, your disc has to be leveled and straight and perfectly flat. The mast has to be straight, the arm has to be straight, the quill has to be straight, your dot sticks have to be straight, and everything has to be very well centered. So that is very important. And the most important thing to cut such a stone is patience. Here you can see, I can see there is a hairline crack right there. I don't know if you can see it. I can see it for sure. It's so tiny and small, but it is there. And when I look from the side with the light, it's definitely there. So I'm gonna try and see on the other side if the table would be better. And also you can see that great big inclusion, looks like a crack. I think, yeah, I'm gonna use this as the pavilion and that part will be cut out. So I'm gonna cut the other side for the table. Now, as I was saying, everything has to be extremely straight and very solid. That means when you put the machine somewhere, when you put the stone somewhere, it's exactly where it's gonna be. It's not gonna move. It's not gonna be shaky. So those things are all very important. And again, I stress the fact, the biggest tool you can have in your arsenal is patience. You cannot rush. You cannot bypass steps to cut stones, to cut a gemstone, especially Portuguese style one. You need to take your time. There is no way to rush through it. I would appreciate it if you would watch the entire video. It is long, it's over 30 minutes. However, it is important that you see all the parts, all the components of the video, and that would be great, and I would really appreciate it. So definitely this side is better for the table and the other side will be the pavilion. I'm going to stick the dop stick on the stone, make sure it's well centered. I'm first going to put CA glue to stick the dop to the stone quick, and then I will apply a coat of 2-part epoxy to strengthen it, because I will be using a lot of, well, some pressure, not a lot, definitely. Actually, I will not be using a lot, but I will be using some pressure, and there would be a lot of facets, so I don't want to take a risk where the stone comes off the dop midway, and that will be a complete total disaster, and all the work I would have done would have gone to waste, and I would have to start over. So here I've applied the coat of epoxy on top over the CA glue, so this will strengthen the bond and I will be able to work without worrying too much. Until the epoxy dries, I have to keep moving like the stone, turn it upside down and back up, you know what I mean, just so that the glue stays exactly where until it dries up, which takes about 5 minutes. This is a 5-minute epoxy, but it's very strong. Now we'll just let it sit for a few hours and we'll start cutting. So we put the dop in the quill and we set the machine at 90 degrees to cut the girdle, and I will be cutting 12 facets, and this is very, very important, very critical to get a proper Portuguese style, that every facet on the girdle, because that will be what you're going to use to define the rest of the facets. They all have to be equal, so you cannot rush this. So starting from, we're using a 96 index, starting at 96 and every 8, making a facet and making sure that we stop at exactly the same place for every facet. Since it is a girdle, it will be 90 degrees, so that exactly the stone will be perfectly round, perfectly symmetrical. You have to stop always at the exact same place. So that means when you reach 90, you stop. So for that's why I was saying you need to have a very true machine, very straight and dependable. And that's what we're going to do with my homemade machine today. Now my machine gives me a little more precision than the regular angle indicators. This has 2 decimal points as well, so it's a little more precise, which is great. So I'm starting to cut the first facets on the girdle, and that should take me a few minutes. And I'm using, to cut the initial girdle, I'm using 320 grit, and then I will move up straight up to 3000 to recut the girdle on the 3000, and then cut the rest of the stone on the 3000 and polish. Recutting the girdle on the 3000 grit lap will take time, but it will be more precise because it will cut slower. It's true, you're using up your 3000 grit lap, but they're pretty cheap, and it's gonna take a lot less off the stone, and it's much more control. So I'm gonna be getting much more precise uh, stone outline this way. And you're gonna see that it's almost perfectly symmetrical. All the facets on the girdle are the same, almost completely identical. If I measure them, probably they will be identical. And now I'm going to polish the girdle. So I cut it. Now I'm going to polish it. I'm going to be using my new bat lap to polish. I love this bat lap. It polishes fantastic. I've only tried it on a couple of garnets and um, a sapphire, and it polishes beautifully. So if you can get your hands on one of those, believe me, it's worth it. I'm using the snake oil and pandemonium 100,000 grit diamond paste to polish, and it works fine for me. I'm resetting the stone to the 90 degrees or as close to it as possible so I can polish it. Now I don't have to polish the entire facet of the girdle, only where whatever remains, so on the bottom part there. The rest is going to be removed when I cut the pavilion. So I'll concentrate on that end for polishing. The rest is not necessary. Again, using the 3000 grit to recut the girdle gives me the chance to make each facet even more precise, more the same as every other facet. So because that will be very, very important, the rest of the pavilion, and in fact the rest of the stone, will follow the girdle. So I'm going to start with the first tier on the pavilion. I will be starting at the lowest point, so I don't have to, the rest will all be higher, so I don't have to lose a lot of weight from the stone. I will make 5 tiers on the pavilion, and you can see there what I mean. So 5 tiers on the pavilion and 5 tiers on the crown, most likely. The first tier will be around 70 degrees, so just under 70. And the second tier will be around 60, 63. and then the third tier will be around 57, and the fourth tier will be around 52 or something like that. So I'm going, basically what I'm doing is I'm going 70 and then remove 8 and then remove 6 and then remove 5 and then remove 4. So that's what it is. So these are the first two mains. And here what I'm doing with the first two mains, I'm checking the alignment of the stone. I'm checking the alignment of the machine. And if everything is perfect, starting perfectly, it's a good sign that everything will be okay. So by the end of the tier, I won't have a big discrepancy between the first facet and then the last facet. When they meet, I want them to be even and equal. And how I do that is usually just double check, just look around every time I cut everything I cut, just look around and see if everything is symmetrical. Just look all around the stone and see. You can usually tell a little bit if you're gonna be off a little bit or off a lot or off at all. And I just keep an eye and cut little and look a lot. So you have to look 20 times and cut once. And that is very important. That's where patience comes in, because the smallest discrepancy, if you cut a little bit too much, you cannot go back and put it back. That means you have to cut the rest of the facets or recut everything. Or on that tier, cut the rest of the facets to that exact place where you cut that one, which you've overcut, and then basically you've misaligned all your points and you just messed up the stone. And here I'm checking and everything looks lined up properly. I don't see any difference between the facets and where they're gonna meet. It looks great. I'm doing good so far. And the other thing I do is I always undercut rather than overcut. I always undercut, and then when I polish, it brings it to the correct size, to the correct place, and I end up with an equal facet. And there we go. Look at that. I'm checking it and it looks perfect. Everything is very symmetrical. Meet points are perfect. Facet size are perfect. The lines are right on. And right there, you could see that everything is very symmetrical and it's all perfectly aligned. So now I will go around again very gently and I will start polishing, and the polish will make sure that everything meets perfect. If there is like a slight difference, because it is cut by hand in one of the facets, the polishing will take care of that as well. And that's exactly what it does. And again, polishing is very important as well. And I'm so happy now I have this bat lap because it's helping me a lot with the polishing. So it takes time. I have to take our time and really polish every facet, especially these are large facets and they take a long time to make sure it is perfectly polished, and I want this for the stone. I want it to be perfectly polished. I'm not worrying so much about the tip, the end of the QLit, because that will be removed. So I'm worried mostly about the part that's gonna stay. So I'm polishing mostly the bottom near the girdle. Well, even past the middle, actually, as you can see right there. And here you can see my beautiful machine. I'm gonna take a little break now because I'm tired. I'll come back to this. And there we go. I'm back. I'm doing the second tier. And I'm not gonna show you every facet because that will take us forever, but I'm gonna show you most of them. So this is the second tier now, and it looks like, again, everything is aligned properly, and I will get even facets, and it's working out just fine. And again, I'm going to cut each tier and facet it. The first 3 tiers, I'm going to cut tier, facet, tier, facet. The last 2 tiers, I will cut both of them because by then I already know what the stone is going to look like. And I will cut the 2 tiers and then start polishing backwards on those 2 tiers. Look at that, how aligned, how perfect that is. Second tier is almost done. One more facet on the second tier and then polish the second tier and onto the third. And look how aligned that is. That is perfect. There it is. You can see the second tier is done and it looks great. Facets are equal, perfectly aligned, well centered. Time to polish. And again, I'm cutting this on my own homemade faceting machine, which works like magic. I'm very happy with it. And also I'm keeping track of which angle and which key, so I can always come back to it, so I don't have to go looking when I polish and mess up my edges. And I clean my bat lap and recharge it with endemonium for every tier. And I must emphasize patience, patience, patience. You cannot rush through this, because you rush through this, all your work will go to waste. I've learned this lesson. I've learned it many times, actually. And patience will pay off. Look at how beautiful that stone is, and the biggest tool for that is patience. So finished polishing the second tier, and you can look inside and see what I'm talking about. Looks like it has a galaxy inside there. I love looking inside that stone. It is beautiful. Here I saw that I have a couple more scratches. I will polish them out. And those will take time to polish out, but I will do it. I want the stone to be absolutely perfect. And here it is. You can see how beautifully, perfectly centered and well aligned the tiers are. Look at that. On a homemade faceting machine. Starting to cut the third tier. And again, if the girdle was not done properly, this would have been impossible. To have these perfect facets, well sized, well centered. That's why it is important for this type of stone, this Portuguese cut, to have the girdle perfect so the rest will follow suit. And again, you can see I undercut my meet point. I just go just before the meet point, before they meet, and then they will meet when I polish. The polish will complete the cut. So you can see just before they meet, I stop. And I follow that rule throughout the entire stone, from the beginning to the end. So just before the meet, I stop. So this way I don't overcut, and I can always go back and fix, but mostly the polishing will fix that anyway. I apologize, sometimes my phone camera does not focus properly, so please forgive me for that. And here I am, I'm finishing the last facet on the third tier, and then I will polish, and on to the fourth and fifth. And look at that, perfectly aligned again and well centered. And from here on, I don't think I'm going to show you every facet that I polish and I cut, so you get the idea. And I will show you as I finish each tier what it will look like. And look at that white, it's gorgeous. Cutting the fourth tier. And now it's getting a little faster because the facets are much smaller. But polishing them, I still have to be extremely careful because they are small. I could overcut very quickly without realizing. So look 20 times and cut once. Look 20 times and cut once. and polish, you still need to take the time and polish properly. There it is, finished the fourth tier, time to polish. I think that's the last facet on the fourth tier. And we're already on the fifth tier. And then we'll polish that. We'll look at the stone, what it looks like. And there you can see, again, undercut. And be very careful. Fifth tier is done. We're gonna polish it and look over the stone, make sure it doesn't need any polishing anywhere else. Everything is good. So I did the fourth tier and the fifth tier without, and then polished the fifth and fourth backwards that way. I didn't do it like I usually do, so polish one tier, cut one and polish. I just did the fourth and fifth and polished them together. And let's see what they look like. Perfectly cut pavilion of a Portuguese style gemstone, and look what it looks like inside. This beautiful gemstone looks like it has a galaxy inside. Seriously, I could get lost in there. I love that. And there you can see how it looks.